We have NEETs because since the great crash in 2008, successive governments have never been able to get any growth into the economy. We've been stagnating. And now you've got AI, which is killing entry-level jobs for young people, making it even worse. Add to that the perverse incentives of the British welfare system, which make people better off by staying at home and doing nothing. And many of these young people have never, ever had a job. This new permissive attitude to so-called mental health. And then on top of that, Lucy Powell's own government under Keir Starmer banged extra costs on employing young people.
The Education Secretary before all that, as Lucy Powell has written in the Times today to criticise the one-size-fits-all academic approach of education. She also takes aim at the former Education Secretary, Michael Gove, over the 1 million NEETs not in employment, education or training. Andrew, I'm so glad you're here to have this conversation, because I'm really interested in this, because there is an argument that we need to recognise the world is changing, and therefore our children need to be equipped maybe slightly differently to previous generations. That seems to be a sensible position. Does it therefore follow that schools are too academic and something needs to change in that respect first?
No, it doesn't. Some of us have been arguing for better high-quality apprenticeships and far better vocational education for about 50 years now. And much little progress have we managed to make in that time. Lucy Powell's intervention is depressing on so many fronts. I mean, she has no expertise or little expertise or experience in education. She's been Education Secretary for 3 seconds. And here she is lecturing us on the matter. And she's chosen us to do it in the most tribal and partisan way, having a go at Michael Gove. And actually, education in England was one of the coalition or the previous Tory government's very few successes. If you're going to change things, you need a broad consensus. She should have outlined a general approach that would command the support of most of the political parties, bed it in and make the changes so that it doesn't change even when government changes. And I just a final point on this, I'm sure we can come on to much more. The idea that it's all Michael Gove's fault, I mean, it just, she's Education Secretary. What she says should be evidence-based. None of Michael Gove's reforms touched Wales or Scotland. Wales has a higher per capita number of NEETs than England, and Scotland pretty much the same amount. So what on earth is she talking about?
And the thing is, she's confronting a problem that's bedeviled, as you pointed out, Andrew, British education for decades. I mean, the idea of parity of esteem was there in 1943 when they came up with the tripartite system, which was effectively grammar schools, secondary moderns and technical schools, which never really worked. Certainly if you went to a secondary modern, the technical schools thing pretty much never happened at all. So the notion is not wrong, is it, that we need to find a way of giving the right sort of education to everybody and finding out what that is, and when you institute it, is actually quite a complicated and thorny issue that we've never done well.
The Butler Education Act, which came in 1944, was actually a consensus act between Labour and Conservative. The technical schools were meant to have parity of esteem with the grammar schools. Indeed, they were called technical grammars. They never really got off the ground because the British establishment wasn't interested. The British establishment understood, oh, well, grammar schools, that's for bright kids from ordinary backgrounds whose parents can't afford public schools. Secondary schools, that's for the masses. What's this thing, a technical grammar school? We don't understand it. You read Corelli Barnett's The Audit of War, which is of the history of Britain in the immediate post-war years, and you see how the establishment, every one of them who had gone to public school and were educated in Latin, Greek, the greats, and English literature, and went to Oxford and Cambridge, they killed the technical schools, and we've never recovered from that. So I'm all in favour of this, but it's not the reason why we have so many NEETs. We have NEETs because since the great crash in 2008, successive governments have never been able to get any growth into the economy. We've been stagnating. And now you've got AI, which is killing entry-level jobs for young people, making it even worse. Add to that the perverse incentives of the British welfare system, which make people better off by staying at home and doing nothing. And many of these young people have never, ever had a job. This new permissive attitude to so-called mental health. And then on top of that, Lucy Powell's own government under Keir Starmer banged extra costs on employing young people. Add all that together, That's the reason why we have a million NEETs, and all parties are complicit in it.
I'd throw in also the post-COVID mentality, which seems to have been a sort of shift in cultural expectations about what people contribute to society.
Well, that was partly the permissive attitude.
Yeah.
That's partly what I meant by the permissive attitude to mental health issues.
So I guess that good question is, Andrew, is it at 14 saying you're either an academic kid or a vocational kid? Because the danger of that is you end up with the grammar school, secondary, modern split written again, which was a failure to everyone who didn't get into a grammar school. I think we have to acknowledge that. It was an anti... aspirational policy to people who didn't succeed in the grammar school system. Do you do a split, or do you just try and actually enable kids to ride two horses for long enough?
Well, you cannot be pro high-quality vocational training of the type they have in Holland, in Germany, and actually, best of all, it doesn't get enough coverage, Austria. You cannot be pro that and be anti an academic grounding, because high-quality vocational training, which leads to the STEM subjects, science, technology, engineering, and so on, requires a strong ability in language and mathematics. And that requires a good educational grounding. The best apprenticeships, and I've spoken to a number of them in years gone by at British Aerospace and Rolls-Royce, they do a period of time at university as well. Mm-hmm. So there shouldn't be a clash between it. At some stage, 15, 16, 17, younger people should begin to think the way they're going. Should we be going to a more academic university education, or should we be going to a more vocational one? That's when you can make the choice. But the grounding should be the same. And it's a social class issue, as everything usually is in Britain. Politicians can go on all they want about this, but when some cabinet minister stops boasting about little Jemima having got a place to read PPE at Balliol, Oxford, and instead has got an apprenticeship at Rolls-Royce, that's when I'll start to take them seriously.
That's interesting. Just finally, Andrew, am I a grotesque idealist? But I'm this sort of grad grinding.
He's laughing already.
I know. You can say I am. You say what you like to me, Andrew. I won't be offended. But this sort of grad grinding approach to education always bothers me. And maybe this is just a very privileged voice speaking here when I say this, but I just have this fundamental belief that at some stage education cannot simply be about getting the job at the end of it. Not least because we don't know what the jobs are going to be. And in fact, most jobs are going to be seriously affected by technology, and you might have to be left with underlying skills like the ability to talk, or the ability to read, or the ability to have critical thinking, the ability to respond to ideas. Does everything have to be about preparing? This is what Miata van Buren said to Kate earlier, preparing our young people for the workplace. Can't education be fractionally more than that as well?
I couldn't agree more. The purpose of education, or of a good education, whether it's vocational or academic or something in between, is to produce a rounded person. A person who's agile enough to take advantage of whatever opportunities come their way, who is articulate in public, can express themselves, can deal in teamwork, but also be able to work individually at home. And a good education does all of that. I was very lucky to have an excellent education, even though I came from a pretty ordinary background, and it gave me all of these things. Some people probably say too much, and you should shut up. That's another matter. And so, of course, education can equip you for jobs, and that's part of it. But it is that more rounded, that broadly braced person, and you make the important point. You know, media people and politicians and pundits and experts, they all think they know the jobs of tomorrow. They don't. Nobody does. About 50% of the jobs being advertised today didn't exist 20 years ago. Nobody knows. So you really need to produce people who have a broad enough educational base to take advantage of whatever jobs come along in the years to come, the shape of which we do not yet know.
I think that's a very fair point. Elizabeth says Switzerland focuses on vocational training, but it's interconnected with the academic university route and with pure work-based apprenticeships. There are loads of points as you progress where you can switch into another system and allow students to mature and grow into the best post-school option for them, which I think is the point that Andrew's making.
Exactly.
You've got to find a way of managing all of these things.
And there are also many of you reflecting on some of the things we heard earlier on about the things that are lacking in modern apprentices or students or graduates. including the ability to make and receive phone calls without having a meltdown, somebody says, and also looking people in the eye. That was something that was raised earlier, that it's very difficult. Some people find it very hard to look people in the eye, and that's part of the business that's signed up to help with the government scheme. That's one of the things that they've also identified, that workplace culture. Let's take a quick break, shall we, before we talk about Donald Trump and a potential deal or not with Iran. Andrew, stay where you are. We're also going to come on to talk about Andy Burnham and stopping the boats and maybe making our holidays a bit more cool. This is Times Radio Breakfast with Stig, Abell and Kate McCann in association with Nationwide, a good way to bank. It's 19 minutes past 9. President Donald Trump has told reporters on Air Force One that he thinks there's a deal with Iran and he's cancelled massive strikes on the country.
We were all set to go just about at this time right now, and it would have been a massive attack. We were all set to go, but when the allies ask to call it off, you got to sort of say, well, let's see. And the reason they asked is I think there's a deal. There's a deal on Hormuz, and then there will be a deal on the nuclear, or you might call it the denuclearization of Iran. I call it the denuclearization of Iran.
Well, that was President Trump talking about a potential deal with Iran. So, Andrew, have we heard this all before? How likely are we finally to see that deal take shape?
Well, I think now nobody of good conscience can deny Donald Trump the Nobel Peace Prize now. I mean, he, in the past 5 months, has brought peace to the Iran war 8 times. 8 times he's brought peace to the Gulf. So how could you, I mean, what more do you have to do to merit a Nobel Peace Prize? I mean, Obama didn't bring peace to anywhere, and they gave him a Nobel Peace Prize. So I think the Donald 8 times has got to be done. Truth is, the allies did not ask him to hold off. There was one ally asked him to hold off. That's called Saudi Arabia, because they're terrified of what the Iranian response might be. The UAE actually was urging him to bash on. The truth is I think we've been talking about many times, there are no good options. You escalate this war, as he was threatening to do, has done many times. Iran will escalate right back and create a mess among the Gulf states. You don't do that. Basically, Iran has the upper hand, and in the end, you're left to scuttle away. Look, I think the thing to realize that there is no deal in the offing. Iran is playing Trump like a fiddle on this. This is a very evil regime in Tehran, but it's not a stupid regime. They know what's happening in America. They follow the midterms as closely as we do. They know this is a deeply unpopular war, that the impact on the American economy has been very unpopular. His handling of the economy now has an approval rating of about 30%. In the latest poll, 78% of Americans want the war to end now. They are just going to drag this out through the summer months until Trump gets a kicking in the midterm elections, and then they'll be able to say, well, let's see where we are now. I mean, if the Democrats end up in control of the House in Washington, they could cut off finance for this war. So it's a terrible time for America, with no good options and none of this rhetoric coming from Trump. I mean, we waste our time even analysing it because it's either meaningless or he's done a U-turn on it within 24 hours.
Well, Andrew, one of our listeners, Rob, has raised an interesting point here. Rob says Trump always talks up a deal over the weekend, so it guarantees that the markets open up on a Monday, something which he then exploits. I mean, is there something in that, or are we being too cynical?
I think he's absolutely right. There are elements of the Trump administration which are very similar to kleptocracy. And a lot of their wealth and growth and the wealth depends on the markets. And I think the markets are being manipulated here. And Donald Trump, who's very transactional on these matters, he always has an eye on what will be the headlines when the Wall Street opens on a Monday morning. And he's done it again, and the price of crude oil has fallen and so on. But I think I've marked your card before. The price of crude oil is actually a broken barometer in this dispute. What matters are the refined products from crude oil: jet fuel, diesel, petrol, gasoline as the Americans would call it, and they are all going through the roof.
Yeah, I think that the worst thing for Donald Trump is that it's almost become laughable.
But people just don't take it serious anymore.
I mean, this morning,
it's terrible.
We were looking this morning at what we should lead our show on, Andrew, and other websites have been leading on Donald Trump, and we just thought, why would we lead on him saying this stuff when he's said it so many times before and it's not meaningful?
Decision.
Well, there was a time when we would have led on it, and now we just think, well, he said it before. I mean, it's remarkable how quickly that shift has taken place, if we're honest.
It's very depressing because throughout my lifetime, no matter who the American president was, Democrat, Republican, left, right, Carter, Reagan, whatever, you took seriously. We rightly took seriously what an American president had to say because it mattered not just to Americans, but to America's allies and to the rest of the world. Now, you might as well just read the shipping forecast.
Yeah, that's a very fair point. Should we talk a bit quickly about small boat before we get to chilly days or cool occasions, which I know Andrew's desperate to talk about.
Brolly bobs.
Let's not go there. Andy Burnham is pledged to be relentless in reducing small boat crossings. It's revealed more than 2,000 have crossed the channel since he took office. Andrew, we were saying that Andy Burnham is pretty good at, he knows this is important, he's willing to go to Dover, he's willing to talk straight to a camera and sound plausible. But the weather's good at the minute, that means lots of people coming across. When the weather gets bad again, fewer people will come across. Maybe the numbers coming down year on year, depending on what you think about climatic conditions. He'll need to do something, though, to take it to the next step. And is there something that he's willing to do, he's able to do you think?
It's not clear what. I mean, I think we now see what it's like to have a politician in 10 Downing Street. And whereas Keir Starmer was just not a politician, and Andy Burnham's a very good politician. And he says he's going to be relentless on the small boats, which most people will agree with. What we won't understand is what it means. He does inherit a not bad situation. My understanding is that the small boat crossings in terms of people are down about 40%, a little over 40% year on year. They seem to be ramping up now because the weather's so good. We'll see how it goes. He was sensible to keep the current Home Secretary, Mr. Starmer's Home Secretary, in place. She's pretty tough on these matters. That's popular with the people, including the people of Makerfield, that Andy Burnham won the by-election. What he does for an encore, I'm not so sure. And of course, for all politicians, you can talk the talk as a politician, and he does it extremely well on this. But at the end of the day, the people expect you to walk the walk as well. And I'm not quite sure what that means in the next stage. He's got an improving situation. It's still not good enough yet. I don't know what he does then to make it even better.
And that question, I think, is you could actually take as a microcosm of everything for this government. He's very good at talking.
Yes.
He's very good at talking to the traditional media and non-traditional media. He's good on social media, all of that stuff. But if you talk about education, what is actually going to happen? If you talk about social care, what is exactly going to happen? What's going to happen with small boats? There comes a moment where actually being a good politician isn't quite enough.
That's correct. But he's using the summer to bed himself in, to let the British people get to know him a bit better. I mean, because we're journalists and we've been following his things and we'd actually heard of him before the Bakerfield by-election, I think we overlooked the fact that most British people didn't know who he was. Yeah. Nobody knew who Tony Blair's, or I think it was Gordon Brown's final culture secretary was. That would be Andy Burnham. Even when he was health secretary, his profile was low. So he's using when Parliament's away, the summer months, for the British people to get to know him a bit better. Sometimes it's a bit grating. Some of these TikToks are really getting on my nerves right now. He did something about a BAP. I mean, he's Prime Minister. He's not a PR man.
He wasn't entering the cultural war of what to call a bread roll, was he?
BAP, farm cake.
I mean, whatever.
Stotty.
That's so rude. It's a cob, by the way.
Bread bun, cob.
I'm desperately trying to think of some Scottish words for her, and I cannot. Thank goodness.
I thought it
Anyway,
was Stotty. Is that Northumberland? Is that Newcastle?
I don't ask me.
He's not been in Scotland for a while.
Barely find it on a map.
Yeah.
Exactly.
He's deracinated. He's deracinated Andrew Neil. That's the problem.
I don't even know what that means, but I'll ask my little
Welcome
scrubber
to my
dog.
world,
It's not
Andrew.
famous after yesterday's. I know. I don't know how you put up with it, Kate. I really don't. Anyway, come September, when the heat will have gone, and the Labour conference beckons and Parliament is back, that'll be the time for less TikTok and more actual policy and how they're going to be paid for.
Yeah, that's a very fair point.
Talking about losing the heat, Andrew, If one were thinking about trying to book a holiday at this point, would you be hoping for somewhere hot or somewhere cool?
Maybe a little mixture of both, I would say. I mean, I think, first of all, because most of the media, nearly all the media these days, is based in London, the media has given the impression that the whole of Britain has been swamped by a heat wave, or so in France, a canicule. It's not true. North of Watford, it's actually been relatively cool.
That's not true. The Midlands, the Midlands has been searingly hot.
Well, a bit of the Midlands, yeah. Well, look,
no
where
one
I
cares
come
about
from,
the Midlands, do they?
The south.
No.
Oh, I can't, but well, you come from there, so you must care from it. The fact is that the wonderful holiday resorts of Yorkshire and Blackpool and Cumbria and Northumberland, and then even before you get to Scotland, the temperatures there have all been very low. And there are plenty of places to go. Probably after the west coast of Scotland, which is, I would think, the most beautiful place in Europe. The lakes that come down from Switzerland into northern Italy is the most beautiful place in continental Europe. It is just stunning, and it's cool. And there is the French Alps, the Swiss Alps, the Austrian Alps, the German Alps. I think the clue's in the word Alps. There are plenty of places where there's sun and cooler temperatures to go. I'm going to come back as a travel journalist because it's regarded as a huge insight to be able to provide the names of places which are a little cooler than Paris or London. I mean, that's got to be the job for me.
Well, if you are coming back as a travel journalist, then, Andrew, I think you ought to do the final ruling on the name of this item, because we've been calling it coolcation, but we don't like it. We've had Vacooling as a suggestion. We've had Brollybobs, which is obviously self-explanatory and my favourite.
Chilly day.
Brolly, as in your brolly, your umbrella. Bobs, as in holly bobs. Brolly bobs.
I think Andrew Neil's going to leave the room in this.
No, this is important stuff here. Stig, what have you got?
Can we go back to vocational training?
I may need
training.
to.
There we go.
That's where I need to go back to.
We need some vocational training. We're going to leave it there, Andrew, because you actually gave us more or less the recommendations that the travel expert from the Times gave us earlier. So it shows you're qualified as ever in multiple areas of life. What a great pleasure to speak to you.
I'm going to start my apprenticeship as a travel reporter today.
You're never too old for that. Andrew, great to speak to you. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye. Don't leave it so long next time.
No, we won't. Bye.
He was on excellent form, I feel, Andrew Neil.